Today, we're going to speed round 10 Christian shorts from the same content creator because I want to help show you a pattern. And it has nothing to do with her. We're not going to gang up or beat up on her because millions of people are doing this exact same thing. But I want to show you, I really believe this is how most of the younger generations of Christianity are getting their theology. This is where they're getting their ideas about their purpose and meaning and morality and suffering and the future. That's terrifying. Not that it was any better when they were deep in the Word or attending church 3 times a week, but it's getting even more shallow as these creators put out 10 to 15 second quick Christian quips with a little Bible verse, a dramatic tone, a lot of confidence, and before you know it, this entire worldview has been smuggled in unexamined. So we're going to examine just 10 of them in order in a row today. Because I get it. If you are a young believer or just a young person in a Christian culture searching for meaning, and you are inundated with millions of these creators, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you go, putting up a Bible verse and giving you life advice that usually just sounds like condemnation, it can feel profound. But simplicity and confidence and quips do not equal truth. They can, but these ones don't. So let's ask the questions Christians should be asking more as they consume this content. Does this actually make sense? Is this good? Is this true? Is this useful? We're going to dive in. I'm going to play you a short. We're going to react to it. We'll do that 10 times, and that's our video.
Your flesh does not care about your eternity because it's not going with you. So the next time that temptation shows up, get the heck out of there, okay? Pray about it and get away.
We need to do a mega episode on the flesh because this is a concept that I am growing more and more tired of because I see more and more harm come from it. And it's hard to disassociate this concept in your mind even after leaving Christianity and through the deconstruction and deconversion process. The way that the Bible tries to separate you from your flesh, your soul, your eternity from your worldly reality that, by the way, the God of all creation created and said it was good until we messed it up. But we messing it up in the very flesh that he gave us, that he created, that he said was good. We were the pinnacle of his creation. It's so stupid, but that's for another time. Here, your flesh just means your human desires, your bodily existence, your natural impulses, your survival mechanisms. That's not the same thing as some evil foreign invader. That's you. That's what we are. Your hunger, your sexuality, your fear, your need for comfort, your exhaustion, your longing for connection. All of that just gets dumped into this suspicious category called your flesh that is actually the enemy of yourself and the one thing getting in the way between you and eternal paradise. As if being human is a spiritual liability, but that is exactly what the Bible and your church and now these Christian quips would have you believe. And for those that have been brainwashed from Christianity to really believe that you are evil, that you, as you exist in your natural state, is the worst possible thing, the greatest offense to the creator of mankind. I know you can't hear what I'm saying because you go to all the worst parts. Oh, so what? You're just advocating we should give in to every impulse and desire? No. And I'm not going to play any black or white fallacies. And it's not a straw man. I've heard that a million times. If your body is the problem, look at the advice you're given spiritually. Run away. With what your body? Choose not to think about that. Horrific advice for those with OCD or any kind of focusing on intrusive thoughts. Pray harder? What does that mean? When does it get better? It's so unhelpful. It's so lacking in any real practical advice. And that's why Christians just spin their wheels for decades, shame and sin cycles left and right. Get the heck out of there, she says. From what? Your own nervous system? Your own biology? Your own mind? This is so stupid and harmful. In fact, I'm going on too long with this first one. We have 10 to do. I meant to be brief, but like I said, we need to do a huge episode on the concept of the flesh and the evilness behind it. I can't stand it. And the last thing I'll say, and then we're going to move on here. What really bugs me here is the audacity of Yes, she's younger, but it doesn't matter. It could be a 50-year-old saying the exact same thing. But people who are completely uneducated in biology or philosophy or psychology, spouting out misappropriated concepts often out of context from their own holy book that they believe was actually inspired by the God of the universe, and thinking that it's just free range advice, or again, never advice, just condemnation, a list of what not to be doing because you're doing it wrong and it's going to lead you to hell. And the goal for all of us is just what? To feel good, not to be self-sacrificial, not to actually be a disciple of Christ, not to actually be obedient to what he commanded you to do, but just to make sure that you get to secure your spot in paradise. It's disgusting. It's baby level morality and maturity, and the fact that it passes for something supernatural or the greatest moral code or ethic ever is truly reprehensible. So now you know how I really feel about it. Let's get into these next 9.
Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." That's all.
We'll go quick here because I covered this with another content creator also using this Bible verse out of context recently. This is part of a prophetic message to Zion, not a blank check to every believer that their dreams are coming. They just need to wait on the Lord's timing. They train people to reinterpret disappointment or confusion, or the fact that God isn't holding up his end of the deal. He's not answering prayers. He's not there. He's not listening. He doesn't care, as divine mystery, or even more, divine planning. It's not just that you can't understand God. In this case, you can understand God, and he wants good things for you, but it will be in his time. And so you can just relax, give it over to God. It creates a belief system that can never be falsified. That's why Christians love it. This is what I actually think. Christians love verses that delay God having to do what they expected him to do, so they can hang on to their belief when clearly they aren't new creations, or God doesn't have a plan for them. When they see their loved ones die despite thousands of prayers. When they're going into financial ruin despite tithing their entire life. When God is nowhere to be found despite decades of crying out to him. You, as a human, have to make excuses for a perfect, all-powerful God by taking his supposed word out of context to give yourself a pass, just to wallow in your own misery further instead of taking action, or at least living in reality. It's devastating. I am sad for the believer who thinks like this. And now your entire life is set up for failure. You have tied yourself not just to something wrong, but something that's not even there. But it's comforting, and it keeps people passive, and it keeps people waiting, and it gives a little bit of hope in dire circumstances. And so Christians just keep shouting it at each other like it's going to solve anything. Let's move on to the third one. We got to go a little faster through these.
Stop making what someone did to you bigger than what Jesus did for you. Okay?
Gosh, I know people don't like when I get fired up, but the smugness and the condescending here is so stupid, especially because I'm at least critiquing something. You're just telling people why they're so bad at not taking the life advice, the wisdom from the Bible that you have figured out. I hate content like this. I don't care if it's Christian or not. Don't get online and feel like you're an expert for 15 seconds while you say absolutely nothing. Worse than nothing. In this case, she is minimizing real harm. And maybe she lives a really vapid, shallow life where the worst thing someone has ever done to her is gossip about her. And so she just has to remind herself, well, Christ died for me. I'm not going to care about their gossip. But there's a lot of people living who are experiencing such unimaginable levels of suffering and injustice that no amount of focusing or meditating on a dead Jewish person from 2,000 years ago is going to help with. You're just telling people not to feel their feelings or deal with their situations. That's bad advice. People are betrayed, abused, neglected, manipulated, and violated. Your response to them to stop being so selfish and focusing on yourself is grotesque. And again, it's not like I think that these people have thought about these concepts. I don't think she sat down and thought, you know what, for people that are really going through it right now, what would actually help them. No, she's just regurgitating the same stupid slop that has been fed to her. And since it's supposedly backed up by Almighty God, she can just think that it's going to work, that it's going to be good advice. There's no processing going on here. That's a huge part of the issue with outsourcing your morality and your concepts on life in general to a third party, especially one that doesn't exist and actually is just collected ancient amalgamations of man's writings. Think for yourself. A victim's first task shouldn't be resizing their suffering so it fits in the Christian framework better because of the trump card of whatever you think you've gone through, Jesus had it worse. That is so unbelievably not true for not just like a small portion of people, but a large portion of people. And even if Jesus had experienced the worst possible life that any human could experience, that doesn't actually help people. And since we're on the topic, I'll just tell you, I'm not saying it was a breeze to live in these places at these times like Jesus did, but for a while there, he had 2 real parents who seemingly loved him. He was able to learn a trade and provide. He got to the point where he was able to kick it with 12 of his closest friends as they traveled around on other people's money. And then, he was crucified. And I'm not saying that that's not horrific, but I'm so sick of hearing that it's the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody. Not only that, he had, in terms of what we know, if we believe the biblical accounts, the best crucifixion anyone has ever had. It was meant to last days. His took hours. And no matter how horrific, focusing on that point or what he did for you via that crucifixion doesn't actually change anybody's circumstances. It just doesn't. Moving on.
At some point, you gotta stop asking yourself if God heard you and instead start asking if you heard him.
Here's what she is saying. God's silence is your fault. The omnipotent creator of the universe can't get his message to you because of how he made you incapable of actually hearing it. And it's your fault, demanding absolutely nothing from their God. And this one I think really comes down to people's personalities. You have people that are so sincerely trying to be so honest if they're hearing the word of the Lord and they're aware that maybe it's the voice in their head or they've been trained to think maybe it's actually the devil, which is the stupidest thing in the world. If you as a Christian can confuse perfect God with evil devil, that's not your fault. That sounds like God's allowance of Satan to influence you sounding like him. Like if I put a toddler in a room, my toddler in a room who knows my voice, and then I hire someone like a doppelganger, like vocally a doppelganger, and I not only created this person, that's what we're going with, the hiring, but then I allow them in the room and they dress up like me and they call my child to them to do harm to them. Who's to blame? If I want to talk to my children, I will talk to my children. If they are out of earshot or if they are doing something they shouldn't that is preventing me from being able to communicate with them, I will intervene. That's what love is. That's not even love. That's what like normalcy is. The fact that we continue to make excuses for God past the point that we even would for the weak, fallible mortal is insanity to me and something that people see so clearly once they deconstruct. Let's go to the next one. Time out. Coming back to that last one, you didn't see it, but like a spider fell on me and I kind of freaked out and then I tried to keep going. But I think I was saying there were 2 kinds of people, and I want to explain this point and then we're going to move on. There is the person that deeply wants to make sure they're hearing the correct voice of God. But again, they're aware enough it could be their own psychology or it could again be this demonic presence. And so they're honest. I don't think I'm hearing him. And then you have the second kind of person that, and again, I think it's personality type. I'm not saying one is more honest and the less is dishonest, but they have all the psychology happening to them and they call that the voice of God. And so they're the ones running around. God told me this. I had divine revelation. God finally spoke to me. I felt the still small voice. And so they go off with all of this confidence in a completely wrong direction or the direction they wanted to go. They just assigned it to God. So they felt like they had the path ready for them. And again, not out of any kind of dishonesty. I believe in many cases, most of those people really think they heard from God or got confirmation from God. But that only makes person 1 in a tougher spot. Why is God talking to everyone around me? No, God's not talking to anybody because he doesn't exist. There's just 2 kinds of people that think he is and people that think he's not. and they both work against each other and harm themselves because of it. Okay, now we can move on.
Godly plans don't ask God to co-sign, meaning like, God, here's my plan, now bless it. Godly plans say, God, what do you want me to do? And I'll do it. Just a little reminder.
This one's actually really similar to a couple points kind of combined. Essentially, never trust yourself. You're evil, of course. Always wait on God. Stop trying to tell God your plans. Let God move you, except maybe you're not going to hear from God, in which case you're the problem. And so now you need to do something different because, again, it's totally works-based for all of this, no matter what people try to tell you about the grace of God. Because when grace isn't enough and we need to see real action, and real action never happens, we can't blame the perfect God, so we blame the person. And again, there's our cycle. Let's move on.
The enemy did not tempt Adam and Eve to steal something or hurt someone or lie to them. Instead, he just made them question their belief in God. And those tactics have not changed, which is why you need to pray daily and get in the Word daily. And also write things down, as I've said before, because he's going to make you doubt. That's what he does best.
It's almost like you can see her working out her own doubt by taking this kind of a tone to her following about how bad they are for doubting, how they're not doing the right things. Again, no God in sight, just you should be praying more, read the Bible more, journal more. It's sad, I could be wrong, and I don't like assuming people's motives, but that kind of tone she keeps coming at as it's so simple, why aren't you doing this kind of a thing, feels like projection. And if I'm not talking about her, I could talk about a million other Christians that don't hear from God, so they do these things. They get in the Word, they pray more, they hear these answers told to them in their devotionals, in their Bible studies, in their church attendance. And so even though nothing has changed for them, they feel godly, they feel connected, they feel like a true Christian by passing on this bad advice to others. It's a disease, and it's contagious. If your belief, if your worldview teaches you that asking questions is wrong, it cannot contain the truth, because the truth would and should have absolutely nothing to fear from doubt or interrogation or critical analysis or questions. I am married to my wife. We have been married 15 years. This is a fact. I actually know this. I don't have to believe it. I don't have to take it on faith. If someone wanted to question that, first of all, I wouldn't really care, because I actually know that as the truth. But second of all, if I were in a position where I needed to get someone else to believe it, I could. And the questions wouldn't all of a sudden make them evil, and it wouldn't all of a sudden mean that I can't prove it and I have to back way to, you know what, my marriage is actually higher than your thoughts. My marriage is actually a mystery. How dare you think you can try to understand my marriage? No, I'd say, here's my marriage license. Here's a videotape of when we got married. Here's the witnesses that were there. Here's their signatures. Here's the best man. Here's the maid of honor. Here's all the people that were in attendance. Here's the receipt from the venue, right? Like, the truth doesn't actually have anything to fear. And so whenever this topic comes up, I try to give real concrete man-made examples, because if your God, the definition of truth, can't stand up to the same kind of scrutiny that some easily provable human concept can pass, you should think about that. It was designed not to be falsifiable, but when things aren't falsifiable, it's also very hard to prove them. It's the catch-22 of belief, and it's why believers should never go out saying, I know this, I can prove this. If you want to take it on faith, great. If you want to believe it, fine. But these aren't facts. This isn't a given. And then acting like it is and giving horrible life advice is just stupid. Let's move on.
Pay attention to the area that the enemy attacks most in your life, because it almost always has something to do with your calling.
The first thing I want to point out here is I went in order. I'm not cherry picking. This is what she's choosing to talk about. And the ratio of how much the enemy or the devil is at play here is fascinating. And I don't think it's out of whack for most believers. Because again, there's only 3 people that you can assign blame to. God, nope, he's perfect, so we can't go there. us, but even that gets old sometimes. So you need a counterbalance to that perfect God, the definition of evil, which this is actually in us until we get this. But even then, still, for the most part, right? Like it's just all so silly. But living your life like this, believing in supernatural warfare and an invisible enemy that can sound like God that is always trying to steal your soul is exhausting. I lived it for 30 years. I understand this world so well. Life is hard enough without an imaginary enemy. You don't need to do this to yourself. There's also something really, I can't quite put my finger on it, but like pompous and arrogant, almost romanticizing your suffering or your issues into something greater outside of you. Hey, maybe you just struggle with this one thing that you call sin, but now you're part of some cosmic dance where two powerful deities essentially are fighting for who gets to spend eternity with you, right? Like there's a whole other kind of reconceptualization we can do here. And again, it should be its own episode. Let me know if you'd like to see that one. But it is interesting to me how we place ourselves at the center of this cosmic tug of war. But it's intoxicating because it turns ordinary, average, boring pain into cosmic significance. God has a personal calling for you, and the devil so jealous of you and your connection with God and what you get to do for him that is where he's going to attack you. Fairy tales, truly, it is time to mature past them individually and as a society. These are getting in the way of real, actual, possible progress. Next.
There's a lot of people who turn away from Jesus because they had a bad experience with religious people. And our jobs as Christians is to remind them that Jesus also had a bad experience with religious people. Remember, he was crucified by them?
This is almost too funny. She's just missing it. Sure, there are people that move quicker through a deconstruction or toward a deconversion because they see the hypocrisy within Christianity or the claims of Christianity not coming to fruition and all kinds of other things. And believers love to just put all of that in this little box of church hurt. You didn't have a bad experience with Jesus. You had a bad experience with religious people that are supposed to be living their life like Jesus, who have a part of Jesus, the Holy Spirit dwelling in them, giving them the power to do so. So yeah, actually, it's really fair to judge Jesus and the claims of Jesus based off his followers. But that's a whole nother conversation. But listen to what her solution is. Just remind them that Jesus already dealt with bad religious people first. Again, it's the same thing as the first point. Not, hey, let's raise up our standard. Let's actually be Christ-like. Instead of making little condemning videos on the internet, maybe go out and feed a homeless person, clothe a naked person, help a widow. This is what Jesus called religion. Are you doing any of that? Or are you just preaching nonsense? We've been through most of these that I'm going to show you so far, and I've showed you the harm that can come from this kind of thinking that she is promoting. She is the religious hurt that these people are seeing. The advice in this particular one about how to help people who have been religiously hurt is to hurt them more religiously by minimizing their problems because Jesus already dealt with it, so that should just make things better for you. This is so hypocritically asinine. I don't know what else to say about it. So let's move on.
I would much rather hear the world say, you're taking this Jesus thing way too seriously, than to hear, depart from me, I never knew you.
Because those are the only two options, don't you know? It's always the black and white fallacy. You're either 100% all in on fire for Christ, or you're the enemy and you'll be spit into hell. And again, you don't really care about what either side is saying about you. You care about where you end up because like everyone else, you want to avoid pain and pursue pleasure. The funny thing is, I took this whole thing really literally too. I really believed in God. I really tried to orient my life around him. And whenever I explained my story and what led to my eventual deconversion, I was told I was just taking it too seriously. I was being too literal. I expected too much of God and all the other nonsense that Christians come out with depending on what your issue is. Because if it's someone who's not hearing the voice of God, they need to get more serious. They need to pray more like I did. They need to journal more like I did. They need to go to church more like I did. They need to sit and be quiet and wait. They need to know God's ways are higher. If they're not hearing from God, they need to shut up and think maybe I'm the problem. It's all a circle of nonsense. Over and over and over, she and all other Christians are saying nothing a million times over because there's nothing you can say. You have a false religion. If you are someone who keeps putting your problems in a cosmic space, assigning them to either the evil side or expecting help from the positive side, nothing will change. I'm not trying to give you the script of pull yourself up by the bootstraps here. There's a lot of awful suffering in life that will continue regardless of your religious beliefs, but living in reality is step one, because it usually means turning and trying at least to get help from something real. But the placebo effect of Christianity has been enough for some people sometimes that it just keeps getting prescribed as medicine. And if your belief in God at best can act sometimes as a placebo psychologically for you, I promise you can do better. Let's go to our last one.
Just a little reminder that just because you don't see God working doesn't mean he's not working. Okay, he could still be moving pieces and things and people that you don't even see. Okay, you just gotta have a little bit of faith. He's working in your life, even if you don't see it.
Hey, this last one's actually just a reminder that your celebrity crush that you're in love with, they've gotten your letters. Okay, and as far as you know, they're actually taking their time working on a really well-constructed reply or planning something huge for you because they love you back and the two of you get to be together in paradise forever. But first, they just need a little more time to set that up. So don't move on to the next thing. Don't lose your love or belief in this particular person. Just keep imagining it, keep making excuses for their inactivity, and eventually that never comes, everything will be right. It's on that level. We need to grow up. All this lady did in retrospect, I flipped through these really quick. I'm just giving you initial reactions here, but everything that she did, and what we'll need to make the title of this is making excuses for her God. All the ways that God has clearly failed her, she is turning around and projecting back onto the individuals that she assumes are living in the same way she is, putting accountability everywhere that it doesn't belong except the one place it does. I think it's very clear to see that the claims made in this Bible falsify this God or make him evil. You take your pick. But either way, trying to orient your life around him, continuing to hurt yourself to protect him, cannot and should not be the answer. So demand more from your God. Stop making excuses for your God. Open your eyes to reality and take the first step in actually helping any of these individual scenarios that are causing pain or suffering in your life. I know it's daunting. You've been taught your entire life that the only thing, the only fix, the only source of truth, the only source of health is this God, this religion, his word, etc. How's it going for you? Your Bible says test everything and only hold to what is good. Your Bible says that you'll be able to know a tree by its fruit. Is your God good? Does the fruit match the expectation of the tree? Are you willing to be honest? Thanks so much for being here. I know I also get zesty, so if you want to throw back at me that I too am not just this humble servant, that's fine. But I care about people and I care about alleviating suffering, not supporting fairy tales that lead to more harm. So if that comes out with a little more zeal, zest, passion, and temper than you like, I apologize, but tell me where I'm wrong. So I'll see you Thursday with a comment deep dive. And until then, keep thinking. Thank you to my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast and Boris, Chris, Greysteel, Gnarlywill, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn, my Humanist heroes, Chris, Craig, James, Jarrod, Kristi, my Atheist advocates, Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jeremy, Jugs, Julie, Malcolm, Paul, Rega, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you enjoy Mindshift, would you consider joining these fine people? Thanks and have a great day.